Donald Trump's planned meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska has generated intense speculation and deep unease among US allies because it represents far more than a diplomatic engagement. On paper, it's an opportunity to end the war in Ukraine. In practice, it may serve as a geopolitical stage on which Putin cements gains, Trump claims a headline-friendly victory, and Ukraine itself is excluded from the decision-making process about its own future. You see, for months, Trump's public statements about Russia and Ukraine have appeared erratic. At times, he's praising Putin. At others, he's hinting at sanctions that never come or expressing disappointment in Putin. Yet, beneath this shifting rhetoric lies a consistent pattern: avoiding genuine pressure on Moscow and favoring concessions that leave Russia in control of occupied Ukrainian territory. His team has floated details in which Ukraine surrenders land, NATO expansion is halted, and Trump claims to have ended the war in record time.
It's going to be a big thing. We're going to Russia. That's going to be a big deal. What happens, happens. I'll let you know what happens. You'll be the first to know. I'll be calling the European leaders. I'm going with we have a lot of talks. They're great people. They're great leaders, actually, and they want to get back. Honestly, as one of them said, I've OD'd on trying to settle Ukraine. They've OD'd, meaning they've overdosed on the settlement of Ukraine.
The Alaska meeting's symbolism is impossible to miss. Alaska was once Russian territory, sold to the United States in 1867 for just $7 million when the Russian Empire faced financial strain. Holding a US-Russia summit there evokes a mix of historical irony and geopolitical theater. The choice of location also mirrors the 1945 Yalta Conference, where Roosevelt, Churchill and Stalin divided spheres of influence in post-war Europe, a precedent that would delight Vladimir Putin, who sees himself as a modern power broker capable of redrawing Europe's map. From Putin's perspective, all the advantages are his. After years of diplomatic isolation, he's being welcomed by an American president on US soil. The optics alone undermine international efforts to label him a pariah and indicted war criminal. For Trump, the summit offers a shot at the Nobel Peace Prize he openly covets, as well as a marquee foreign policy event suited to his reality TV instincts. In both cases, the meeting rewards Putin simply for showing up, regardless of the outcome. The likely terms Putin will seek are straightforward: recognition of Russian control over Crimea and eastern Ukraine, a permanent block on Ukraine's NATO membership, and limits on Kiev's military capacity. He may also try to expand the deal to cover Arctic cooperation and mineral exploration, particularly in contested zones where US-Russian collaboration could be framed as a win-win business opportunity. For Putin, such an agreement would lock in the territorial gains of his invasion while signaling to Europe that the US will not defend Ukraine's right to reclaim its own land. Ukraine is not invited to the table. President Volodymyr Zelensky, whose country has endured hundreds of thousands of casualties, finds himself the target of Trump's rare moments of criticism. Trump has suggested the war should never have started, a statement so vague it could mean anything from blaming NATO expansion to blaming Ukraine itself. What is clear is that his leverage over Zelensky has diminished. By cutting off US weapons deliveries and limiting support to indirect sales through Europe, Trump has stripped away the main pressure points he once held. The Europeans, meanwhile, are left scrambling to influence the outcome. Leaders like the Dutch Prime Minister have tried to maintain personal rapport with Trump, even resorting to flattery while urging him to maintain aid to Ukraine. But Europe's position is fragile. If Trump accepts Putin's terms, the result will be a de facto Russian victory that sets a dangerous precedent for further aggression, particularly in the Baltics, where NATO security guarantees could be tested. Trump's approach follows a familiar script. In early 2025, he halted key military aid to Ukraine, even preventing cargo planes loaded with Patriot missiles and other weapons from taking off. This triggered panic in Kiev. Then, seemingly on a whim, he reversed course and allowed deliveries to proceed, presenting himself as magnanimous. The pattern mirrors his handling of tariffs, where he alternates between conciliatory signals and sudden punitive measures, conditioning allies to see minor concessions as major diplomatic wins. Inside Trump's orbit, there is a lack of deep strategic expertise. Some of his top defense and foreign policy figures have been caught off guard by basic geopolitical realities, including ignorance of Kaliningrad, Russia's heavily militarized enclave in Europe. Such gaps matter because they make it easier for a skilled operator like Putin to dominate negotiations. By contrast, past US administrations, regardless of party, prided themselves on having leaders thoroughly briefed on the granular details of international disputes, but not Trump. Putin's negotiating style is direct. He states his demands clearly, leaves little room for ambiguity, and is willing to let time and battlefield realities reinforce his position. Trump, drawn to the optics of grand agreements, is susceptible to deals that look good in the short term, but shift the strategic balance in Moscow's favor. The Alaska summit provides exactly such an opportunity. Beyond Ukraine, the meeting may touch on resource exploitation in the Arctic. Both leaders have economic incentives to cooperate in opening new mineral frontiers. Despite environmental and territorial disputes, this could be framed as a bold economic partnership while quietly reinforcing Russia's military and strategic position in the region. If the Alaska summit ends with a joint declaration that Russia keeps its current holdings, Ukraine is barred from NATO and sanctions are eased, Putin will have achieved what he set out to do from the start of the war, and without making genuine concessions. Trump will return to Washington claiming to have brought peace, while Ukraine and much of Europe see the deal as a capitulation that emboldens Russian expansionism. The danger is not only in what is conceded, but in what is legitimized. By sharing a stage with Putin and treating him as an equal partner, the US signals that invasion, annexation, and defiance of international law can be rewarded if packaged in the right diplomatic wrapping. For countries on Russia's periphery, this message is chilling. Ultimately, the Alaska meeting is not about ending the war in Ukraine on just terms. It's about political theater, personal prestige, and the consolidation of Putin's hold over territory and influence. The United States risks trading long-term security and credibility for a long-term peace that leaves the underlying conflict unresolved and Europe more vulnerable than ever before. If that happens, the true winner in Alaska will not be the man seeking a Nobel Peace Prize. It'll be the man who never stopped believing he could outplay him. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.